aware of, so definitely a wealth of information. Next up we have Dr. Lauri. I've asked to have the pronunciation of this name twice. I'm still probably going to get it wrong. Przybysz. Good enough. Dr. Lauri Przybysz has a doctorate of ministry, and she serves as the executive director of the Christian Family Movement USA. Lauri and her husband John, who's like me, a fellow West Virginian, were presidents of Christian Family Movement USA from 2005 to 2009, and North America Continental presidents of the International Christian Family Movement from 2010 to 2016. Lauri received the doctorate in ministry from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., with a focus on adult faith formation and marriage enrichment. So please welcome her to the stage.
Thank you everyone. I'm so thankful that you have brought us here together, all these different movements. Even though I'm from Baltimore, I did not know the other Baltimoreans that were involved in the YCS because our paths did not cross between the Christian Family Movement and YCS or YCW in the time that I lived in Baltimore. John and I were presidents of the Federation of the Christian Family Movement when we lived in Pittsburgh for 20 years. So this is very good for us to have this connection. The Christian Family Movement is very happy and has been eager to be a sponsor for this event, and that we have been able to connect with these respected groups. Now, the Christian Family Movement USA is a national network of parish or neighborhood small groups of families. We're members of our parishes, and we're nourished by the sacramental life of the church and work in collaboration with other families in the parish and with other groups and associations. Through the use of Observe, Judge, Act, the Christian Family Movement members experience their Christian values enforced, and their families are encouraged to reach out in action to others beyond their own milieu, beyond their own neighborhoods or their social or cultural experiences. They learn by Observe, Judge, and Act to expand the horizons and find ways to put their faith into action. The mission of the Christian Family Movement is to promote Christ-centered marriage and family life, to help individuals and their families to live the Christian faith in everyday life, and to improve society through actions of love, service, education, and example. This method, Observe, Judge, and Act, has been central to the mission and ministry of the CFM for nearly 70 years. During that time, the CFM has promoted concrete ways for the domestic church to improve family life by reaching out. The question is, in today's society and church, how will CFM continue to reach out in action to inspire families to live their faith today? Because the need has not gone away. Now, it's a whole other talk to talk about the history of the Christian Family Movement, but just in brief, the CFM founders applied their Observe, Judge, and Act method to marriage and family life. The first chaplain of the CFM, Father Louis Putz, along with Monsignor Hilbrand, taught the first couples, especially the founders Pat and Patty Crowley in Chicago, a method of faith formation that they learned from Cardinal Joseph Cardijn. Cardinal Cardijn employed this method, the Joseph's method, for his work with the workers and forming them to be lay leaders in their milieu. I love that word now, I've learned that. Cardinal Cardijn said, "For me, laymen are not formed through books, purely theoretical teaching or spoken lectures, however magnificent, or even through discussions. Laymen are formed first of all by the discovery of facts, followed by a Christian judgment, resulting in the actions they plan, the plans they carry into effect, and the responsibilities they shoulder. end quote. CFM taught couples to get involved. Through the application of Observe Judge Act, Christian families became involved in many activities that they might not have otherwise approached. Ministries such as foster parenting, prison ministry, refugee sponsorship, care for the earth, feeding the hungry, religious education, couples counseling, and marriage preparation. The couples, mainly educated and economically advantaged, began to meet in small groups in their homes to apply Observe, Judge, and Act in the context of their vocation to marriage and family life. They learned how their lives were a path to holiness and service in church and community. They observed injustice in society and the social stresses that impacted families, their own and other families not in their neighborhoods. And they took action to make a difference in society as well as at home. The movement that began with a few couples caught on rapidly and had a significant influence in Catholic life before and after the Second Vatican Council. They say that as many as 500,000 members called themselves CFMers at one time or another in the early decades. If you would like to explore those first decades of CFM, I recommend a history of that period called Disturbing the Peace by Jeffrey Burns in the Notre Dame Press. Now, American parishes and families have changed significantly since the period before 1970. And Dr. Murray has told us about how a lot of movements underwent great change after the Vatican Council around 1970. And registered members in the CFM USA dropped to about 2,000 in 1970 to about 1,000 today. Today, many activities and programs compete for the time and attention of families. Young people are not joining groups, either secular or religious, like they used to. Just ask the Knights of Columbus or the Rotary Club. This bowling alone generation has been, if you want to look at this phenomenon, you might look at Bowling Alone, came out in 2000. They did not connect with the small groups that had nourished the marriages and families of CFMers in the past. But there remained to be a cadre of dedicated people who had experienced CFM as formational in their lives. Today, religious practice and connections to the support that religion provides have continued to weaken. 1/5 of the U.S. public and 1/3 of adults under 30 are religiously unaffiliated today, the so-called nuns. And this is the highest percentage ever that the Pew Research Center polled. In 1970, about 48% of American Catholics attended Mass regularly. Now 23% do. In 1950, at the beginning of the Christian family movement, 75% of people went to Mass regularly. In my paper, when it's published, you'll see a lot of links that document this research, which is impossible to cover all today. But I just wanted to highlight one graph that for me typifies or exemplifies the great changes that happened in marriage and family life since 1970. This is a snapshot of the changes that the church is experiencing in marriage and family life. You'll see the decline in marriages in red since 1970. Just a picture of it. And infant baptisms in green track this trend. So it's not like people, they don't get they're not baptizing their children, and they're not sending their children to religious education, besides not coming to church. And there is another study that shows that even couples or families that are sending their children, that come to church, are not sending them to religious education. The number of Catholic marriages has declined by half between 1970 and 2000, and so have the number of infant baptisms. This tells us that young Catholic families who remain connected to church are becoming rare. And in the present situation, families endeavoring to live a Christian life need to know they are not alone. They need friends who share their values and role models for marriage and parenting. This has become then one of the great projects of the Christian family movement to support and encourage these young families. Their actions for the service of others are also important, but just encouraging family life is a huge project that CFM is dedicated to. Now, those changes in family and church have sparked a desire among people for some kind of support, but it needs to be identified and invited to become part of the Christian family movement. With marriage going out of fashion and church practice declining, support for the vocation of married life has become a critical ministry need. Responding to this critical situation, a dedicated core group of CFM leaders continues to propose, observe, judge, and act to new families today all around the U.S. Although their numbers are smaller, they are energized by their faith and guided by the vision of their founders. Like the small groups of couples who started CFM, they continue to volunteer their time, talent, and treasure to organize, mentor, and animate small groups in mainly suburban parishes around the country. They have judged that observe, judge, and act is a means of keeping their Christian faith alive in the world and support them in the journey of raising their families today. And so they act to try to make a difference. Now, personal invitation, peer relationships, and friendship are what makes CFM different from other groups or programs in parishes. Small groups in parishes have really expanded since the beginning of the 1970s. CFM was doing those small groups before anyone else was, as far as family went. The CFM national presidents, John and Mary Poprack from California, told members recently, quote, "One of our most vivid memories of our years in CFM is watching our 5-year-old daughter and her friend make sandwiches for the homeless here in Los Angeles. I think I treasure that memory because it exemplifies the main reason we joined CFM, to pass along to our children the importance of being grateful for the gifts God has given us and sharing those gifts with others." They continue, "One of the reasons we decided to become active at the national level of CFM is our conviction that CFM is still needed by families today more than they realize. It helps us to see the similarities among peoples so that we can take that step to care for and love all our neighbors. It leads us to actions, teaching our children by example the importance of participating in our communities and working to make the world a better place, the place that God wishes it to be." Quote, "Indeed, our society needs the community of small Christian family movement groups more than ever. Pope Francis emphasizes the importance of faith being visible in our actions to our fellow man. The CFM groups meeting in the home and neighborhood can build these relationships. Although membership has decreased in those suburban parishes in the U.S., the Christian family movement is thriving in places and populations where the church is young and growing. In the U.S., 40% of young adult Catholics are Hispanic, and CFM is expanding in those parishes. In the U.S. and Canada, 3 Hispanic CFM movements strengthen the marriages of immigrant families by building small groups that use observe, judge, and act. The largest of these Hispanic CFM groups, Movimiento Familiar Cristiano Católico, has more than 8,000 families. These American and Canadian organizations of CFM are part of the International Confederation of Christian Family Movements, called the ICCFM. You see all of our logos here. And the largest concentration of the Christian family movement is in Latin America. Worldwide, over 100,000 families in 6 continents and more than 40 countries use Observe, Judge, and Act methodology. The ICCFM is committed to making an impact on society and is recognized by the United Nations as a non-governmental organization. And the ICCFM leadership is building up the movement in Africa, Vietnam, Cuba, and Sweden. All these Christian family movements have a common mission: bring more families into relationship with Jesus Christ. Each CFM action group or chapter is made up of 4 to 12 families meeting once or twice a month. Because meetings are usually held in the home, CFM is a comfortable setting for all kinds of families, including mixed faith couples, to discover ways to express and act on the values they have in common. Many people who are now active in ministry in the Catholic community, both lay and ordained, got their start in the CFM group, and I would venture to say that quite a number of you were associated with CFM at one time. Members may be young parents, married couples, single parents, grandparents, at no cost. CFM mentors provide leadership and guidance on how to invite, organize, and facilitate the small groups. We have a starter kit for someone to start CFM in their parish. As the support of the institution, now CFM has the support of the institutional church worldwide in its mission worldwide. The CFM USA is a member of the National Association of Catholic Family Life Ministers. The U.S. Catholic bishops recommend the Christian family movement in their documents called and gifted for the third millennium and Follow the Way of Love. The CFM leaders were invited to participate in preparations for the Synod on Family at the Vatican in 2015, and Latino American CFM members in the Movimiento Familiar Cristiano are playing a key role in the Fifth Encuentro process, which is using Observe, Judge, Act to energize the growing number of Hispanic Catholics in America. Now CFM, each CFM meeting has a program guide for prayer and study. Since its inception, CFM has produced an annual program book focusing on issues families encounter. Program books are written by veteran CFM members under the direction of their Catholic chaplains, professional Catholic family life ministers, and educators. These materials are a benefit of the annual membership in the movement. If you come to our workshop this afternoon, you can experience how a CFM meeting is structured, and you can participate in a meeting. The most recent edition of For Happier Families, which is the starter introductory book, it's actually the 10th version, by my count, since 1950, introduces them to the Observe, Judge, Act method. These families, after they have been introduced to For Happier Families, can move on to CFM's Discipleship Formation Program. Groups of seniors can have materials available that address their time in life. And other programs address racism, the impact of technology, stewardship, parenting, immigration, and marriage enrichment. Now, it can be a challenge to find actions that the whole family can do together, especially if they have young children. With some creative planning, though, CFM groups take on family-friendly actions like partnering with a community group to fix up homes for the disabled neighbors, or collect underwear and socks for the homeless. Observe, Judge, Act starts with people's lived experience, and they can put it into action. Some members say that they would sponsor a speaker on a social justice issue, or discuss, or commit themselves to discuss the daily news with their children, or volunteer to teach confirmation classes. In meetings on the corporal works of mercy, for example, some members observed hunger and housing situations in their community and decided to identify agencies in their communities with whom they could partner to work with the elderly, a soup kitchen, or raise funds with a bike-a-thon. When members work together to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, defend the gospel of life, or serve the local church, they're teaching their children by example. From this understanding, CFM USA has taken its motto from the letter of St. James: be doers of the word and not hearers only. For nearly 70 years, the Christian Family Movement has used Observe, Judge, and Act to teach families how to be active agents of the gospel and missionary disciples who evangelize their friends, relatives, and co-workers. When people judge facts in the light of the gospel, it provides an opportunity for the Holy Spirit to convert their souls to Christ. This method gives them the vocabulary of evangelization, helping them find the words to express their faith. They're part of a network of families that teaches them to see themselves as the vital part of the body of Christ. In conclusion, you've seen how church and family life have changed dramatically since the early years of the Christian Family Movement. But now CFM is ready and willing to do what it needs to do to change, to reach out to more families, to employ the best of social media, online publishing and communications, video technology and surveys. It remains now for today's CFMers, heirs to the spirit of Cardinal Cardijn and the mission begun by their founders, to imagine new ways to pass along this gift to the next generation.